Hi, in this video we'll solve a pair of linear equations using cross multiplication method. Let's write down the linear equations first. 2x plus y is equal to 6. So this is linear equation 1, and the next linear equation is x plus 4y is equal to minus 4. Let's call this as equation 2. Now the first step in cross multiplication method is to write down the equations in standard form. So what is mean by standard form? We have to write down the equations in the form x plus by plus c is equal to 0. That means we have to bring all the terms to the left hand side of the equal sign. So let's subtract 6 from equation 1. We'll get 2x plus y minus 6 is equal to 0. So all the terms are to the left hand side of the equal sign. And if we add 4 to both sides of equation 2, we'll get x plus 4y plus 4 is equal to 0. So in the first step, we have arranged both the linear equations in standard form. In the next step, we have to draw a diagram showing coefficient of the equations. So how to draw the diagram? We have to begin with the coefficient of y. So we have to start with coefficient of y. Then we have to write down the coefficient in clockwise direction. So we have to write down the coefficient in clockwise direction and again end at y. So we'll go clockwise. Now let's write down the coefficient of y because y is the starting point. So the coefficient of y for equation 1 is 1. Then, and for the second equation, the coefficient of y is 4. Then the next term in the sequence is the constant term, which is minus 6 for the first equation, 4 for the second equation. Then moving clockwise, we'll get coefficient of x. For the first equation, the coefficient is 2, and for the second equation, the coefficient of x is 1. And we have to end at y. So y has coefficient 1 and 4. So we are writing coefficient of y. This way, we have written down the coefficient of all the terms in both the equation. Now the first pair will represent x, the second pair will represent y, and the third will represent constant term pair. So for the constant we write down 1. Now this way we have created one diagram. Now if you see, x has coefficient other than its term. So x has coefficient 1 and 4, that is of y and the constant term. Similarly, y has coefficient other than y and the constant term has coefficient of x and y. Now in the second step, we have to write down the terms as, so x has pair of coefficient as 1, 4, minus 6 and 4. So x has this pair. Then y has pair minus 6, 4 and 2 and 1. Then the last term 1 has pair 2, 1 and 1 and 4. So if you observe carefully, x has coefficient other than itself, that means 1 and 4, minus 6 and 4. Y has coefficient other than y, that means minus 6 and 4 and 2 and 1. And the constant term has coefficient of x and y, that means 2 and 1 and 1 and 4. Now this way we got an equation involving 3 terms, x, y and the constant term. In the next step, we have to cross multiply the terms. So what we'll get, x will remain as it is, then cross multiplying. So first we have to multiply these two terms. So we have to multiply 1 and 4, and then in the next step we have to subtract the product of these two terms. That means 4 into minus 6 equal to. Similarly for y, we have to cross multiply. So first we have to multiply minus 6 and 1 and then subtract multiplication of these two terms. That means 4 into 2, and that must be equal to 1 upon cross multiplying the last pair 2 into 4. So we'll get 2 into 4 minus in the bracket 1 into 1. So what we have done, for x term we multiply 1 by 4 and subtracted product of 4 and minus 6. For y we multiplied minus 6 and 1 and subtracted 4 into 2. And for the constant term we multiplied 2 by 4 and subtracted 1 into 1. Let's solve this equation. So what we'll get, x divided by 4 into 1 is 4 minus 6 4s are 24, so we'll get minus 24 equal to y divided by minus 6 into 1 is minus 6 minus 4 into 2 is 8 equal to 1 by 2 into 4 is 8 and 1 into 1 is 1. So at the end what we got, x divided by 4 plus 24 is 28 is equal to y divided by minus 6 minus 8 is minus 14 is equal to 1 upon 8 minus 1 is 7. Now we got fractions of x equal to some constant value. So let's take the x term first and the constant term. So we'll get x by 28 is equal to 1 by 7. Now what we can do, we'll multiply both sides by 28. So x will be 28 by 7. 28 will get cancelled to the left hand side. That will give us value of x as 4. So we got the value of x as 4. So for y minus 14 is equal to again the constant term which is 1 by 7. Then if you multiply both sides by minus 14, we'll get y is equal to 1 upon 7 into minus 14. So y will be 7 2s are 14, taking minus sign, y will be minus 2. So this way we can find out solution for pair of linear equation using cross multiplication method. Now let's consider some special cases. We'll write down the linear equation first. 2x plus y minus 6 is equal to 0. So this is equation 1, and the second equation is 4x plus 2y minus 6 is equal to 0. So both these equations are already in standard form. That means x plus by plus c is equal to 0. Now what we have to do, we have to write down the coefficient of the equations first. So let's write down the coefficient. So we'll begin with y and we'll write down the coefficient going clockwise. So the coefficient of y are 1 and 2. Then the constant term has coefficient minus 6, minus 6. Then the next term is x. The coefficients are 2 and 4. And again ending at y. Y has coefficient 1 and 2 in both the equation. Now this is x pair, this is y pair, and this is constant pair. And we have to cross multiply the terms. For y this will be the cross multiplication, and for constant term this will be cross multiplication. Now let's write down this coefficient in equation form. X divided by The terms are 1 and 2, minus 6 equal to y has terms minus 6, then 2 and 4, and the constant we are having terms 2 and 4 and 1 and 2. So this will be x upon, let's cross multiply for x, 1 into minus 6, which will be minus 6, minus the second term is 2 into minus 6, which that will be minus 12, is equal to y upon, by cross multiplying we get minus 6 into 4 is minus 24, minus 6 into 2 will be minus 12, equal to 1 upon, the first term is 2 into 2, that is 4, minus 4 into 1, that will be 4. Now let's solve this equation. So we'll get x upon minus 6 plus 12 will be 6, is equal to y upon minus 24 plus 12 will be minus 12, is equal to 1 upon 4 minus 4 is 0. So we got denominator as 0. Now if you take x term and the constant term, we'll get x upon 6 is equal to 1 upon 0. That means x into 0, cross multiplying, x into 0 will be 0, is equal to 6 into 1, that is 6. But this is not correct. Now for the y, same thing will happen. Y upon minus 12 is equal to 1 upon 0. So cross multiplying will get y into 0 is 0, is equal to minus 12 into 1 is minus 12. This is also not true. These two equations, 0 equal to 6 and 0 is equal to minus 12, are false. Hence these two equations are inconsistent. So these two equations are inconsistent and they don't have any solution. So these two equations are inconsistent and having no solution. So this is the case of inconsistent linear equation. Now let's consider the second case. We'll write down the linear equations first. 2x plus y minus 6 is equal to 0, and the second linear equation 4x plus 2y minus 12 is equal to 0. So we'll begin with y and then we'll go clockwise. So the y has coefficient 1 and 2, then the constant term minus 6 minus 12, then the next term is going clockwise, x has coefficient 2 and 4 and y has coefficient 1 and 2. So we'll stop at 1 and 2. So we got pair of coefficient for x, y and the constant term. Let's write down in equation form. So x upon, we have to cross multiply 1 and minus 12. So we'll get minus 12 minus 2 into minus 6 will be minus 12, equal to y upon minus 6 into 4 will be minus 24, minus 12 into 2 will be minus 24, is equal to 1 upon 2 into 2 will be 4, minus 4 into 1 will be minus 4. That means x upon minus 12, minus minus will become plus. So minus 12 plus 12 will be 0, is equal to y upon minus 24 plus 24 will give us 0, is equal to 1 upon 4 minus 4 is 0. So writing down the x term, x upon 0 is equal to the constant term which is 1 upon 0. And if you cross multiply, we'll get x into 0 is 0, is equal to 1 into 0 is 0. Then for the y term, y upon 0 is equal to 1 upon 0. And if you cross multiply, y into 0 will become 0 is equal to 1 into 0 will become 0. We got equation without any variables. That means these two equations have infinite solution. So these two equations have infinite solutions and they are called as dependent. They are consistent but they are dependent linear equation. These two equations are represented by coincident line. If you divide this equation by 2, will get exactly the same equation as the first equation. So if you divide 4x by 2, will get 2x. If you divide 2y by 2, will get y. And if you divide minus 12 by 2, will get minus 6. So this is a case of coincident line having infinite solutions.